Welcome to my podcast, Today's Dream, Tomorrow's Reality. My name is Vickie Poole. I'm a master transformational coach and hypnotist specializing in habit change. This podcast is sponsored by the Enlightened Peach, and it's all about embracing our mosaic life. Well, some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life anyway? Well, it is recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. Changing one thing, and we are different. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. And I am your host, and I have a special guest that I will introduce in just a moment. But before I do, I would love for you to do me a solid, and that is to leave a comment or even to like, subscribe, and especially share. So now let's get started. So this lovely lady right here is Trine. Is it? Do you say it Schmidt? I didn't even ask
Yes.
that one.
Yes, it is.
Oh, beautiful. I didn't screw that one up. Um, so I would love it if you would maybe just tell just a touch about you, and then we can get started. But you and I know each other from being in a group together that is on Facebook, of my mentor and just a dearly lovely person, Stacy Lauren. And so anybody that's in her world, I know I want in mine. So thank you for being here.
No, thank you so much for having me, Vickie. It's really exciting to be in this space, and it's all about talking about who you are. And I call the you inside you. This is what my world is about, and my podcast is about, and my journey in life. And so, a little bit about me: I am a relationship coach. I've been a psychotherapist for over a decade. Um, I work especially with women who want to reinvent their relationships,
Hmm.
people feeling kind of lost, stuck, overdoing, overwhelmed in relationships, and they want to find themselves again. As moms, as partners, we easily get lost in, who are we? And we give too much of ourselves. So this part of feeling, abandoned is what I really help piece back together again for people. Yeah, so I mean,
Okay.
and it's inspired by my own journey, and I don't want to get into that too early.
Well,
If
so I got a question for you.
Yes.
So, are you primarily working with women that are maybe unhappy in their relationship, so they're maybe leaning toward divorce or splitting up and that kind of thing? Am I understanding that
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So I have worked specifically with people who are in a place where they're just anxious and burned out and they don't know where to go. And it usually spills into their relationships.
Yeah.
Their relationships with their spouses are kind of rocky. Their relationship with their kids are not the way they want to be. They don't feel like the mom they really want to be. Um, and I've also worked with divorced women because my own journey through divorce and working with people that kind of come out of these relationships and trying to understand what happened. Did I do anything wrong? How do we heal from all of that?
Yeah.
Is also a subgroup that I work with. And so I just love relationships in general of how can I be the best version of myself to strengthen my relationship even if I'm out of a relationship, because we're still in a lot of relationships, or we might be co-parenting, and we might still have a relationship with our ex-husband. Um, it's so important to know ourselves, know our emotions, how they trip us up, know our needs, so we can
Hmm.
be more clear in
Yeah.
asking for what we want.
Yeah. Well, I've been married twice. And one of the things I can say is that now the first marriage, I got married on my 19th birthday. So I was young, and he was a lot older than I was. And I just thought he knew everything. I knew nothing. So I just adopted whatever he thought or he said and everything. And when that relationship when I got a divorce, it was like suddenly it was like I don't even know what my own thoughts are anymore, you know. And it's amazing how that happens to us, and it can be in friend relationships, it can be in with our children relationships too, but they're so time maybe men do it too, I don't know, because I can only speak from a woman's side, but that was one of the things that I did so many times getting into a relationship is because it was like I want him to like me, so yeah, I love that, you know, and then over time of doing that, you don't even remember that you didn't. And until it goes south and you say, you know, I was really never happy with that. And that's when you start thinking, what the heck was I doing? And so for me, I haven't been in a relationship in a bit. And one of the things I think is I'm so happy with my life and that I'm busy and I'm doing all these things. And sometimes it feels like a relationship would be an imposition. And then I don't want to fall back into old patterns and old traps and all of those things, right? Because I love it as it is. And so in my first marriage, especially, I had times that when I got off work and it was time to go home, I didn't want to go, you know? And I love coming home to my home and my sanctuary. You know, that's my safe place, my happy place. And so the thought of having a relationship where somebody else is entwined in my life here and me not want to come home, that's such a daunting thought. And I
Mhm.
know that working with somebody like with you, and there's some other relationship coaches that I have in my group, that if I decide to get into a relationship, if I come at it from this place of power that working with someone like you helps you have, then hopefully I wouldn't fall into those old patterns, those old traps of trying to make them so happy that I am totally irrelevant. And I know that's a long story for just popping it in
Yeah.
there, but
I
yeah,
mean, you speak right into it. This sense of losing ourselves, afraid of being intertwined in something. Because, Vickie, to be honest, we live in a society and in a culture where this is modeled everywhere. We grow up being told what to do, how to do it, conditioned to really abandon our own inner guidance.
yeah,
And a lot of us don't discover this journey. We call it, the journey of personal growth or self-awareness. My journey was to kind of self-love, understanding what does that even mean? We're not taught this. We're not taught how our emotions and our needs are important and how they need to be listened to first before we start doing for others, before we start over pleasing to make other people happy. So we have constantly learned that, my yard is not just my yard. I need to go into other people's yards and mow their yard and rake their leaves so they can be happy, right? And then I have to go into the other person's yard and start building stuff in there. And until your own yard is just full of weeds because you don't have time to attend to it.
yeah,
And this is where the danger is because as soon as we get into a relationship again, it's hard not to do that when we've been wired to do that. We've
yeah,
been wired to this part of giving is it has to be that we abandon ourselves to give to others. And we don't even know what we actually want. And so many women kind of wake up in relationships or come out of a relationship and like, wow, I don't even know my own thoughts, right?
yeah.
Or what do I really want in life? Am I even allowed to
Yeah, and a lot of times you wake up
think
and you think,
about that?
who the hell is this person I'm married to?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
yeah,
right? Because we change and evolve over time. And this is not about whether, we should stay in relationships or leave relationships. That's not the space that I operate in because I
hmm,
do believe that we're all on our own journey. And I do believe that certain souls outgrow each other
yeah,
while we're learning from each other. I don't necessarily believe that we're destined for one person. I believe that whatever journey we're on, we're going to meet the right people to help us expand and evolve in life. And I think it's so beautiful. how much we can learn about ourselves in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And after getting out of a relationship, learning about that too. What worked? What did not work? How do I see myself? What do I want more of?
Yeah.
And it's that journey I find so interesting and super exciting. And particularly for you, this space of, oh my gosh, will I have to sacrifice that part of my life that's comfortable and safe and awesome
Yeah.
in order to let someone in my life?
Yeah. Well, I know my sister is in an amazing relationship with her husband. And what she tells me all the time is, Vickie, it's just because you haven't met the right person. If it's the right person, it doesn't feel like it's this imposition. It just is a smooth transition. And that's the way it was for her. I said, okay, well, we'll see how that works out, because I can say I may be hard to live with just because I've been a single woman for a very long time. So
Mm,
I'm used to running the show. I am used to just doing my own thing. Now, I do have an adult daughter that lives with me, but I'm still the one that runs the show, you know. And so I'm used to that. And I love all the things that I do. And I can just pop on the computer and do my thing. I can do a podcast or have a client or get on a live, and I don't have anybody saying, well, where are you going? What are you doing? And sometimes I'll be honest, there are times that I fall into that space of sometimes I wish that there was a person in my life so that they said, hey, come spend some time with me. And we sit and we do something, or we go for a walk together, and we collaborate together and we encourage one another. So I have these ideals of, the kind of relationship that I would want, or that I do want, but I still get in that phase of, is it really worth it at this point? Um, and so who knows what will happen, but so I do fluctuate, but I will say the times that I'm happy and not thinking about a relationship are like 80% of the time. So
mm.
it's only a short period, a little piece of my life that I think about having someone in it. So
Yeah.
like I said, who knows what's going to happen? And it may be that one day I go somewhere and I meet the perfect person for me. Not that
Mm,
anybody's perfect. And then we're able to be ourselves, and we're able to encourage one another, spend time together and spend time apart. Because I will say the last relationship I had, I felt so smothered. And I think that's what turned me off from even having one, because it
mm,
was like he wanted every inch of my time. And then I would go over to his house for a little while, and then I would want to go home, and he'd say, I'll go with you. And I'd, no, I just
mm,
need to get away.
mm,
And when I finally said, you're smothering me to death, I just can't do this anymore. It was so uncomfortable because he was upset. He cried, and he made this statement that it just blew my mind. He said, I was just about to ask you to marry me.
mm,
And I looked at him and I said, so if you think that I'm running because you want too much of my time, I would run so fast you would not, your head would spin if you asked me to marry you. Because
mm,
I don't know what you were reading, but I certainly wasn't given that signal, and I was just like mortified. And then I was sad that I'd hurt him, but a part of me thought, well, it was his own doing because he obviously was not reading the cues. And it almost felt like maybe he wasn't going to, but he said that to kind of put this guilt thing in me or make me
mm.
change my mind or something. I don't know what it was, but like I
Yeah.
said, that was my last relationship.
Yeah.
And it was like, no, this is not going to fly.
Yeah.
But before we spend way too much time on me, I want to ask you some questions,
Yeah.
because I know you said something about you started this work because of what you had gone through.
Mm.
So before you get into that, I want to ask you one thing. What is your favorite memory from when you were a little child?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say my favorite memories are probably vacations with my parents.
Hmm.
This is the time where we spent most time together and
Is there
we
one in
had
particular?
a lot of fun. Yeah, yes, my mom probably doesn't want this to be published, but
She
there is
won't see
one
this.
memory we keep coming back to.
Yeah.
And this is, my mom is not much of a drinker, right?
Okay.
But on vacation, sometimes she'll have a glass of wine and she gets tipsy pretty quickly, right? And I
Yeah.
remember being, early teen or
I'm
something
already
like that.
giggling and I haven't even
Yes.
heard it yet.
And we were playing a game. We love playing games in I'm born and raised in Denmark and we play cards, board games, we play games all the time. So we were playing this game and she had to pour coffee for my dad out in the kitchen. So we were in this little apartment, right? So she's pouring coffee and she'd had whatever, oh, I think she had Irish coffee. This is always what kind of, you know, takes her out. We
Yeah.
came home from dinner, pouring my dad some coffee, and for some reason she just didn't realize that the cup was full. So she kept pouring, and all of a sudden she's giggling in the kitchen, and she's like wiping the cabinets and stuff like that while she's cracking up. I'm like, Mom, what are you doing? She's like, it just kept pouring. And we were all cracking up. So this memory has just we've talked about it so many times in our family, and it's just one of those times where you just laugh, right?
Hmm.
Because we mess stuff up, and all we can do is just laugh of it, and it trickles into everything else, a ripple effect, and I love that part.
Yeah. I love that story. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I don't know why. I just wanted to know. So,
Yes.
so now we can transition into you
Yeah.
telling us a little bit about what your experience is that brought you to this amazing place of working with people in relationships.
Yeah. I think from day one, I was born with a purpose to help people. I always understood people on a deeper level. I had heightened intuition. I always understood almost like people's journeys and souls. And I really want to understand why we're here on Earth. Like, what is life's purpose? And my parents kind of had an up and down relationship, and it was difficult to see them struggle that much. And, that spilled into some of my relationships and got over needy, over clingy to people because I had such a need to be loved and validated and seen. And to the point that it really tripped me up. It really got me into some, relationship and that was just too needy. I
Hmm.
needed somebody in my life too much.
I used to be that way tremendously
Yeah.
too, so I
And I think a
understand that.
lot of women can really
Yeah,
relate to this
yeah.
because we don't understand again what it is that we need, and that other people are not
Not
the
gonna
ones
feel
to
it. Yeah,
fulfill this.
yeah.
But it was
And
modeled for me, right?
yeah,
But my dad didn't do enough for my mom. And over again, it's like, okay, well, there's this lack, right?
yeah,
There's this lack, and that's what we have to focus on. We got to fill it from the outside.
yeah.
So I moved to the US in my 20s. I married an American man, and for 12 years, I was in a not so healthy relationship. Again, this part of
How did you
abandoning
meet him?
myself. I was an au pair in the US,
Okay.
and we met out, and I fell in love, and back and forth, and I ended up over here. You moved for love.
Yeah,
And it was a tough transition because I left
imagine.
everything I knew. I didn't speak
Which
English that well.
relationships are hard in the beginning, even if you haven't left every friggin' thing you know. So
Yes.
you were really, in a possible tumultuous place just by
Yes.
doing all of that, right?
Yes. And even the au pair family I lived with was not healthy either.
Oh,
So I
really?
really started my whole journey over here in a very unstable, unhealthy way that
Mm,
skewed everything. And I really believed that that's just how relationships are.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
They're supposed to be hard, right? We hear about it. You have to struggle and you have to work at it. And I was convinced that, oh, it must be like this.
Yeah,
You know,
everybody's is this way.
yes.
Yeah.
And I should just change more, I should just compromise more and give more. And I kept doing that until I was just depressed and I couldn't couldn't give anymore. I had lost myself. I felt stuck. I felt confused. I felt small. I felt alone. I had no support system. I mean, I had friends, but I felt so alone. I felt like nobody understood me.
Yeah.
And it was really not until I went through graduate school and started therapy and really started helping people. At that time, I'd also started reading a lot of self-help books, learning about positive affirmation. I started to meditate. I really started understanding how much power we really have in our own heads. I learned
Hmm.
about ego, this part of ourselves that produces these false thoughts. And I'm like, oh my God, why did nobody never tell me about this stuff? Right? Really?
Yeah, but it's that old saying, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Yes.
So if it never showed up before, you
Mhm.
probably weren't ready for it because
Oh
how many
no.
times do people tell you, oh, avoid that person
Yes.
because we know this. Oh, no, that's not true. That's not how they are. We will just discount anything that doesn't go
Absolutely.
along with what we believe in the moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I finally got to the point where I realized I am worthy of more. And
Hmm.
I'm not talking about necessarily relationship, just in life in general. Like I
Right.
started realizing that I can manifest my own reality. So I started hard on attracting things to me that I really wanted. I started, my friendships improved. I had mentors coming into my life. I started really loving myself. And it was mind blowing to see how just that pivot in my own reality just changed everything around me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And ended up getting a divorce because that was my journey.
Yeah.
That was my journey. I had outgrown that relationship. I did not have we were not good for each other anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I've told my people before, they'll say, "But I love them." And I said, "Well,
Yeah.
I'm sure you feel like you love them,
Yeah.
and that's okay. It doesn't mean you're supposed to stay with them because you
Yeah.
can love them from afar.
Yeah.
Because if it's feeling like it is right now, you're
Yeah.
loving them and not you,
Yeah.
and that's not acceptable."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was not the best person I could
Yeah.
be. And we did not make the best out of each other. We had
Right.
2 kids at that time, and it was hard. And I felt I was the only one in my friend group that got divorced. And again,
Mm.
I felt kind of lost all over.
Yeah.
Yet I still had a sense of freedom that I finally could choose what I wanted in my life. I
Yeah.
started
I'm with you
really
on that one.
focusing, right? Started really focusing on what am I capable of?
Yeah.
What do I want in life? How do I want my next relationship to look like?
Yeah.
I knew I was going to be in a relationship again. I just knew in my heart, but I didn't spend too much time on like looking for it. It just appeared in my
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Like you just talked about that, Vickie.
Yeah.
But I had spent so much time thinking about how I would like my life and being content in the moment.
Yeah.
Right? It's where you're talking about 80% of just being present, and then maybe 20% on this would be nice, and I would like some of this, and this would be cool to have, and we manifest in that space,
Yeah.
right? So now we're moving towards, this is one of the biggest thing that I teach the women in my practice is you want to move towards something instead of running away from it.
Right.
We don't want to leave a relationship because we want to get away from it. We want to leave a relationship because we know it's done and because we're moving towards something else. And there's a
Right.
huge difference in this. And a
Huge.
lot of
Yeah.
people tend to run away from something And then we will start repeating the cycle,
Yes.
unfortunately.
I had a conversation with someone not too long ago about this very thing because she has said, she just got out of another relationship and it seemed like it was the same thing happening every single time. And I told her, she said, but I've got a date coming up. And I said, no, 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 no. You don't need to be dating now. I said, you need to take complete time away from any relationship or any dating or anything and just work on you. I said, because right now, where you're at, you're only attracting the same person with different names. And until you make peace with you and love you, it's just going to be a revolving door of the same thing. And I actually had a client that I'll share with you really quick, if that's okay, because it's just such an amazing thing. She was married. She had a daughter, and her mom lived with her and she was friggin' miserable, miserable. And so I started working with her and as a life coach and a hypnotist. And one of the things that was mind blowing, how you said that some people, kind of feel like you're supposed to stay married and all that stuff. Well, her and her husband started going to a marriage therapist. And so they would go like the day before she and I worked together, and she would tell me some of the stuff. And it's like they were doing all these code words. Every time they went, they got more code words. And so, like, if he says something that hurts my feelings, this is my code word so that he knows he hurt my feelings and all this stuff. And after a while, I said, do you have a wall that has written all these code words in? I said, this is it sounds like the hardest way to live. I've never heard of this. I mean, it shouldn't be where every time somebody speaks to you, you have to tell them this code word so that they know that they hurt your feelings or that something's wrong. And and when we first started working together, she could not look in the mirror and say, I love you. She just
Mm.
couldn't do it. It was like she would just stare at the space and couldn't say it. And we got to this one place to where she finally said, I got up this morning and I said, I love you to the mirror. And I said, well, that's amazing. And probably a month after that, they started getting a divorce. And it was because she finally got to this place where she loved herself more than the thought of being married or not hurting, upsetting the family or disturbing him. And then after they got divorced, and it was a very strange divorce. But afterwards, it was like her whole her complexion changed, the way she stood changed, and it was like, oh my gosh. I said, who knew that just having that relationship freed out of your life and she's in a relationship now with somebody else and it's like she's just glowing and I told her I said see I said when you have to work that hard to make something work maybe it's not right. I said so you see the difference because that was the first real relationship that she had had that way. And I said, do you see the difference in what you experienced with him and what you're experiencing with this other guy that you're about to marry, right? And she said, yeah. She said, when she was in the other relationship, she didn't know a relationship like this one existed. She
Yeah.
thought all of them were like that and that she was just supposed to learn how to quiet her thoughts about this is not working, I'm not happy, this doesn't feel good. And I think that's what most women, I don't know about men, like I said, they do. And that's why there are so many women that stay in abusive relationships too. It's because it's scary sometimes to say, I'm not going to do this. Now I'm going to do this on my own.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, you're kind of describing my journey in
Ah,
the and I love that because it really there is something that turns on when you do the work of loving yourself.
yeah.
You start holding yourself to a different standard. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I learned early on in my journey something that said, or I read somewhere, that parents who don't love themselves can't raise children to love themselves, right?
Yeah.
They can't teach them if they don't
Mm-hmm.
know how to do it. And I was like, oh my gosh, before I have kids, I need to know how to love myself because I
Yeah.
know my parents didn't love themselves. So I must not love you. Like I was so confused. I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I got to get on this journey.
Yeah.
And I discovered so much in that. And when I finally did the mirror work and started loving the decisions that I made, I could make decisions on my own and I could feel confident. I could say no to stuff. I could stand up for what I needed and what I wanted without people getting too upset with me.
Yeah.
It's crazy that we need this permission to do the things that we really want to do, but it's not because this is what society models for
Yeah,
us. And then we
and we
use,
actually train our partners how to teach how
yes,
to
I
act with
know,
us
I
and what to
know.
do and what we'll accept from the
Yes,
beginning when we're putting on a show
yes,
for who we think we are. And I'm a lot older than you, so for me it was like I was modeled with Mayberry and with the different shows that were on, when I was young, it was always the mom stays home. She's got on the little apron and she cooks and she caters to them and they're all
yeah,
doing their thing and she's serving,
yeah,
And so when I got married, I thought that was kind of way it was supposed to be. Now, my mom was not a stay-at-home mom. They were entrepreneurs and everything, but I still felt like that was the role model that you were supposed to be. If you were a perfect woman and you were the great woman that you're supposed to be, that was how you would be. And so I love that, now, today, there are different kind of role models. Not to say that they're all good, but there are different kind of role models where women are still, or at least it's more acceptable, and you see more of women standing up for themselves and being on their own. I mean, I don't know how old you are, and it doesn't really matter, but I remember the first woman that I ever saw on a show that was single and proud was Mary Tyler Moore. And before that, that wasn't acceptable. Nowhere on TV did you see any of that. And now, you see it all the time. So it's very
absolutely,
different.
absolutely. And the self-awareness is getting bigger.
Yeah.
We're becoming more conscious as a culture. I love the spiritual growth that we see, particularly in women that become more outspoken and more confident in their own inner voice. And it's not about aggression and it's not about it's my way or the highway, right? This is not about any of that. It's about who we are and it's about this is what I like and this is what I do not like.
Hmm.
You know,
And you
we have
expect a
enough.
partner that has that same level of
Yes,
confidence,
yes,
that same
yes,
level of knowing who they are, because
yes.
then you are a pair of people
Mhm.
that just makes each other better instead
Yes,
of one excelling and the other one kind of staying behind.
yes. Yeah, before I came into the therapy world and marriage and family therapy, I thought for a fact it was a 50-50.
Mm,
You complete me.
yeah.
There's this person that's
Yeah.
going to be a good fit for me. Fit, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to be whole as one, right?
Ah, yeah.
And no, that's where all the danger is,
Yeah.
right? That's where all the
Hmm.
danger is. We become dependent on one another. And
Yeah.
when you go down, then it's my fault. And then we blame, and then we accuse, and then we complain, and then we don't really state what we really want. And if we do, we get the other one upset.
Yeah.
And around we go.
Yeah.
Having enough respect for ourselves to be 100% of who we are
Yeah.
with another person who have enough respect for themselves at 100%. Now it's a beautiful partnership. Now
Yeah.
we can influence one another without doing to one another or without people losing themselves. They can become too whole, but can still have this beautiful dance in uplifting each other on our journey.
Yeah, I heard Abraham Hicks say it one time. And she said, if I'm remembering right, there was somebody that was on her little hot seat thing and they were talking about their relationship and everything. And they said, but something about that person making them happy. And she said, well, that's where you're going wrong. She said, because if somebody says, you complete me, you say, no, 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 I complete me. you complete you. And then since when we're both complete, then we can join together and make a beautiful relationship. But if you're looking for me to do something to make you happy, it's not going to happen because that's not my responsibility. And if that's what you're expecting, then we're not fit to be together. And it was like, at the
Yes.
time, it was like, okay,
Yes.
I'm going for that one. And when
Yes.
I was telling you about that guy that I dated that was so clingy, right?
Yeah.
The funny thing about it was, like I kind of alluded to, I was very clingy before, quite a long time before that, but it made me have so much empathy for those guys that I dated that I was clingy. I remember one in particular that he said, "Well, I'd love to see you again. When can I see you?" And I said, "Tomorrow." And it was like he almost glazed over, like it was, oh my God, she's going to want to see me all the time. And I don't think I want to do that. And I could feel that same thing with this guy. And so all of a sudden, when that was happening, the people that I did that to flashed in my head, that I was upset with at the time because they either didn't call or they said, this is not good or whatever. I had so much more understanding of those. And one of the things that's funny is that for a while there, the way I would decide whether somebody was worth it's not the right way to put it, but anyway, whether I wanted to see somebody, I would go out with them and I think, okay, if I won the lottery tomorrow and I had millions and millions and millions of dollars, I could do anything in the world, go anywhere in the world I wanted to go to. Would I want to go out with him? And then sometimes the answer was no. And I'd want to go do this instead. And so I started using that, as silly as it sounds, as a measuring stick of whether or not I was invested enough in the person and not
Mm,
whether we were going to dinner or whether we were going here or whatever it is I felt that they were feeling, right?
that's beautiful.
Yeah. And it was like the only way I could articulate it in my head to measure it. So
I
that's
love
what
that.
worked for me.
Yeah. No, I had a flashback to, before my current husband and I started dating. We had these long conversations in the parking lot in front of our yoga studio. That's kind of where we started, becoming friends. And I
I
remember
love it.
he was on his way to California. He was going to sell his house. And this part of me was like, no, you're not going anywhere. Like, take me with you. I just at that moment could just see myself go all over the world with him. And then I had to question myself afterwards, like, okay, Trina, what was that all about? Okay, like we're not there. I don't think
Yeah.
about him like that, but that was kind of the first test, according to
Hmm.
Vickie,
Yeah.
to that this might be a lot more than that. And obviously, I want to go all over the world with him now, um,
Yeah.
which is just it's a beautiful thing. So I love that. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah. So you met him at the yoga studio. Isn't that what you just
Yes,
said? So
yes.
that goes to show you just do your thing and you'll meet somebody, I guess, right?
It was, I mean, it was like divine timing. We have been
Yeah.
in the same area for over 20 years.
Wow.
We've probably
And
gone
never
to the
ran
same
into each other?
stores. No, because we both have been married before.
Okay.
So both, raised kids and yeah, so we kind of been around the same places. And he came in and looking for meditation, and I happened to sit out front while people were before my yoga class, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting. Somebody coming in and asking for meditation. I never heard that before. And then he started going at the yoga studio, and I offered, some of my resources in meditation. I was very curious and how he was been doing about it. And it just evolved from there, but it's just those strange meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously not a coincidence
Right.
that we were
Right.
supposed to meet. And it's just life is so beautiful in that, it just
Yeah.
shows us the way. It really
Yeah.
shows us the
When we
way.
listen, when we listen, that's one of the things I talk about in my group is that, there's intuition is guiding us all over the place all the time. Yet a lot of times we're not open and listening, so we just let things pass us by. So
Yeah.
the way I explain it in the group with people is that there are 50 billion bits of information coming at us per second, and we're only able to comprehend 2,000 bits of information per second. So that's a huge difference. But all of those things are out there we could be experiencing if we changed what we focus on in our 2,000 bits. So if we're suddenly we get to this place where we're loving ourselves and we're open to experiences and learning about new things like the yoga and the meditation, and we're just an open vessel, it's going to change every bit of that information that's coming at us. And so they're going to be like these synchronicities of meeting someone at the yoga studio, or you're out taking a drive and suddenly your intuition says, no, don't turn left, turn right. And you turn right. And then you end up seeing the most beautiful landscape that you've ever seen. And it just makes you feel happy. Because sometimes it's not a chance meeting with a person or a chance business partner. Sometimes it's you just get the opportunity, if you're following your guidance, to just get this glimpse of extraordinary beauty or happiness. And I think sometimes, I know for me, many times I thought if it was not something like big, mind blowing, then it wasn't working. I wasn't taking into consideration that all of those things are amazing gifts, right? Like
Yeah.
this morning, I shared with my group, I said, you know what, the best gift I had today, it was I woke up.
Yeah.
And, when we can start looking at those and retweaking what our 2,000 bits are coming for us, oh my
Mm.
God, life can be so amazing.
Oh, absolutely. It actually reminds me of me starting focusing on divorced women.
Hmm.
In 1 week, I had these interesting cues from source.
Hmm.
I had mirrors breaking. I had paintings fall off the wall. I mean, this is like the craziest thing. I'm in my parents-in-law's house by
Hmm.
myself doing a business meeting. They went off for lunch, and I hear a big clunk out in the
So,
hallway.
what were you thinking, you think, that started the whole thing?
So I was kind
Just,
of like, I need to narrow down my focus. I want to know who I want to serve, the women I want to serve. What kind of niche should I focus on? I kind of thought, maybe I need to focus on people who are divorced. And this painting on the hallway falls down while I'm in this meeting talking about narrowing down my focus.
hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I come out in the hallway and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I just had a mirror break in my house like 2 days ago. Now I'm at my in-laws and I'm like breaking stuff, okay? So this thing was falling down on the ground. So later on, I tell this story to them, and they're like, "Oh wow, do you know that that's the only painting in the house that doesn't have glass?" I'm like, mm-hmm. Okay, so it didn't break. It just happened to be falling down when I was there on the carpet, harmed. And then he's like, well, there's this story that this guy went to um, this religious person in their culture, and he wanted to know if he was real. So he asked for a sign, and a picture
He
fell off.
wanted to know if the guru or whatever was
If
real.
the guru was real,
Okay,
if
okay,
he was actually like channeling God,
okay,
right?
gotcha.
The picture fell off the wall. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, nah, but that could have happened to, I mean, it could be anybody in this place. That was just by chance. So if I should get a divorce, then the pink picture will fall off the wall. And then the pink picture fell off the wall. This is what my father-in-law is telling me. This is a
Uh-huh,
story. All
uh-huh,
right.
uh-huh.
And I'm like, okay, I just was thinking, should I serve people a divorce? He's telling me this story about
Yeah,
the picture falling off the wall. I'm like, this just, you can't even make this stuff up.
that's right.
So I have to share that. And this guy apparently went back a year later, and they were talking about this event of these pictures falling off the wall, and he was telling how he had asked for a sign, and they're like, "Oh my God, we have glued those things up on the wall because they keep falling down, and now we understand why that happened." I mean, isn't it just amazing?
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
So thank you for letting me share that.
Yeah,
It's
definitely. And
these signs.
the interesting thing is a lot of people can get signs like that, but
Yeah,
then they don't really want to see them. So
yeah.
they make excuses for them. Oh, well, there's something wrong with the nail. This happened. Oh, that didn't have anything to do with this. And so when we can be in this place where it's like, show me a sign and I'm open and ready to receive, I'm going to listen. And then something happens and you listen. That's when your intuition, your God voice, all that
Mhm.
stuff really spikes into really helping you because you've already proven, yep, I'm open and I listen and I take action. Man, I'm on fire,
Yes. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
I love this. I love
yeah.
these conversations,
I
Vickie.
do
I
too.
really do. We get on fire,
I know.
Having this purpose of allowing women to discover this. I talk about this sense of freedom. I could not believe a sense of freedom when I got out of my first marriage. And this is not about like, oh, I got away from him. And we were not like, I was not running away. I was running towards. And towards was really my own inner light, my own inner love, the own inner expansion of there is so much more. And if I can give this gift to other women, can I just help people kind of break out of that jail of
Hmm.
believing that do not have permission to be more, that they do not have the permission to see their own light, to see that journey of women getting out of like crazy situations sometimes
Right.
where you think there's no way their marriage is gonna like survive this, and they're stronger than ever now, and she feels free and she feels in charge and she can speak her mind and she can speak her truth and her husband can just hear it. And it's not about being in the relationship or being out of the relationship. It's just more of there's more. You can reinvent your relationship at any point. There's
Just like
so
you can
much
reinvent
more.
yourself.
Yes,
Yeah.
it comes from this stillness within to really listen,
Yeah.
really, really listen. And how do you do that? I think this is the hardest part, and I know that you serve people the same way, Vickie. You're getting into really listening. It's tricky. It's hard to understand, but as soon as you kind of start taking some steps and start recognizing the signs, start recognizing, wow, I can trust my intuition.
Hmm.
I can act on this. My life is improving. It just becomes fun.
Yeah.
Life just becomes fun. I call it a playground.
Yeah.
I can invent my own stuff on the playground, new slides and new things, and see where it takes me. And if I didn't like it, then I'll try something different. It's not about failure anymore. Now it's just about, well, how much more fun can I have? And
Right.
right?
Yeah. So let me ask you a question.
Hmm.
So what we've been talking about is women making a choice of stepping out of their relationship or staying in their relationship, depending on what's going on.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
what about those women? What kind of advice would you give them if maybe they may not have been perfectly happy in the relationship, but they really wanted to stay in the relationship and their partner walked away? So how can you help them to start feeling their power? Because the most deflating thing is when somebody else pulls away from you, because then it's like, oh my gosh, if I had tried harder, if I had done this, it would have worked. And we tend to put all the fault on ourselves.
Yeah.
And so, what is it that you could maybe give people that might be listening right now? Maybe they're going through something like that.
Mm,
How can they kind of start getting into the different headspace?
yeah. That's a great question, Vickie. I think regardless of if you are in a relationship, I kind of came from a very unhealthy, tumultuous relationship in the past, and getting out of that, even if it was more my decision, you still question, I could have done better. It's the self-judgment, it's the self-blame, it's the self-criticism, or blaming them. Why did they leave me? Why did they not do more? All of us will have this sense of regret or this sense of reevaluation. And I think that really focusing on every life event is a learning. Like, we as spiritual beings have drawn that situation into our lives for us to really leap and expand. And
Hmm.
although we don't want to hear it in the moment, it is a gift. It's a gift for however bad behaviors people have, abusive, leaving us, keeping us miserable in relationship, all of that stuff is enough contrast in our life for us to take a step back and say, okay, I really did not like that. But what I do want in my life, this is where we have the power.
Yeah,
We identify what we don't want. Now, what do I want? And most
right.
of the women that I ask, even in people that are not in that situation, they're like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you know what comes up when I would say 90% of the people that I work with that I say, well, what do you want?
Yes.
All they start with this litany of list of things. Well, I don't want this, I don't want that, I
Yes.
don't want this. And I say, no, 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 no.
Yes.
That's all the things you don't want. So let's turn it around and let's look at what do you do want. So if you know that that was not what you want, what is at least the opposite of that?
Yes.
And maybe that is what you want, but let's kind of look at that in layers and see, because, and it's interesting to me because before I started doing this work, I didn't realize I did that shit too, you know? Um, and so I think our natural tendency is to go to the place of, okay, well, I don't want to do that again. I don't
Yes.
want this. I don't want that. Right. Um, and so, um, the thing is helping people to even articulate what they want is
Yes.
powerful because most people, like I said, and I'm sure your experience is the same, that they can really articulate the what they don't want very easily. That just pops,
Yes.
runs right off their tongue. But when you
Yes.
say, what do you want? It's like they're like a deer caught in headlights, you know?
Yes. We want to celebrate all the times that we focus on something that we don't want. We want to celebrate that too, because like Abraham says, it is a rocket of desire. We send out rocket of desires every time we recognize something that we do not want. We don't want to
Mm-hmm.
get stuck there, but we do
Right,
want to celebrate when we recognize there's something we do not want in life. I do
right,
not want to feel alone. I do not want to feel rejected. I don't want to be abandoned again. Okay, so now I focus on how can I feel whole? How can I feel included? Where do I find support? Where do I get in a community where I feel normal, where people understand what I'm talking about? So now we can again move towards. So it's just such a gift in these moments and the learnings in that of saying, this, yes, this happened, but what do I take with me
right,
for the next thing so we don't continue first class ticket on complaint train. We want to
right.
get on the love train,
Yeah,
right? We want to get
yeah.
on in a different direction and celebrate on the love train and say, you know what? I know better now.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that nice? Now I see myself in a different light and I can actually make a decision today to move towards more what I want.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And because the main thing is that as you become even more and more in tuned with your inner being, your purpose, with your values, then it's so much easier to kind of magnetically draw people to you that will support those feelings and values because
Yes.
until you get there, you're going to be drawing everybody that helps you to see what you don't want.
Right.
What is the challenge that you've got to overcome,
Yes.
you know? And so it's a very different thing, but either way, we're magnetically drawing them to us.
Yes.
by, you know, how we are and who we are and what we believe. And I like to say what our lens of the world looks like. And so it's getting into groups like we have that allow you to be you authentically and to
Mhm.
have a support system that supports the ideal that you're working toward.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I have a group um, called Time in Tuesdays where women meet in, it's like a class, a support system that meet every week. It's one of my
On Facebook,
programs.
right?
It's one of my programs. This is not
Okay.
my Facebook group. This is a
Okay.
different, separate program that people get into, either if they've been a client of mine or people that are just looking for that accountability, that personal growth without necessarily going to therapy or hiring a, you know, a coach or anything like that. And we meet, and these women have been in this space for like over a year since I started this with Louise a while ago, and I've continued it. It's amazing how they seek that every Tuesday. They look forward to it. They leave with a high because they're in a group that is diverse, but is all for the same goal and same purpose, which is I want to be seen as who I am. I want to be accepted as who I am. I want to normalize life, and I want to always see it as opportunity to grow and learn and then celebrate those steps of expansion. And it's just the most beautiful thing to see in these Time and Tuesdays and how beneficial a group of women that speak the same language. You know, our friends don't understand this. Our families a lot of time don't understand this way of expanding and opportunities in our lives. But in this group, they do. So it is about support. And I know your group is amazing too, Vickie. And it's just so nice to have people come together this way so they can feel supported because you just don't want to be alone on this journey.
That's right. So my group is on Facebook is Stand Up and Stand Out, and that's what I help people do to be confident enough to stand up and stand out and know that they're going to be able to speak their truth and stand out without any regard to whether somebody agrees or disagrees or anything like that. That's somebody else's business and not theirs. And it's beautiful. And I love that, you know, and I have the stand up and stand out party. But one of the things that I really love apart from that is doing the coaching and the hypnosis. And so I love like I said about that client that I had, you know, we worked together for a while and and I'm sure you've had this experience when you're working with someone and you see where they're at and then you see them grow and become this, they blossom into this amazing flower. It just warms your heart and makes you feel good.
Yeah,
And that's when you even get more in tune to, man, this is my purpose. This is what I was built for. This is why I'm here. And of
yeah,
course, you had all the little things falling off the wall to really get you honed in. And I don't know that I did. I need to go back and look. Did I have some of those synchronicities that maybe I overlooked?
yeah.
But it's this journey is amazing. And like you were saying, being in a group, because you and I are both in a group that
Hmm.
is filled with
Oh yeah.
people that are ultra supportive
Yes.
and nobody puts you down. They may give you some advice or tell you, I don't understand what you just said. Can you say it a little bit different? Or, you know, something, but it's like this, almost like it's this soft pillow to land on, you know, no matter what you got going on in your life. And
Yeah.
like I am not perfect by any means,
Hmm.
exceptionally human, and that I fall prey to a lot of these things that everybody's working on because they just happen. And the difference is, and that's one of the reasons I'm talking about this, is because a lot of times people see us and we've been doing this for a long time and they think, oh man, I'll never get there. But the
Mm,
thing is, we didn't start here.
mm,
We started with all of those insecurities. I know I did. And
yes.
then the thing is that I can still drop into those little rabbit holes every now and then.
Yeah.
But the difference is that after you've been doing this for a while, you kind of dip your toe in and then you pull it out and you're good. You don't sink the whole body in and you go down there swimming in the rabbit hole because I used to do
Right.
that.
Right.
And so we all have this amazing ability to be resilient in the world
Hmm.
when we've got surround ourselves with the right people, we get the right coach, we
Yes.
get the right mentor. It's like
Yes.
leaps and bounds. You make these quantum leaps that you never even thought were possible.
Yes. It doesn't have to be hard. I did
Right.
not believe that, Vickie. I
I
really did
know.
not believe that. It does not have to be hard. And for anybody who is looking to want to make changes in their lives and be like, I want a little of that, like step into it. There is so many ways of you creating momentum. And I literally, most clients that I've had come out of very quickly come out of a program of mine and be like, I don't recognize my life. And they came in for one thing and now their, leadership is better at work. They're starting to speak on stage. They are getting bonuses. A relationship that they thought were falling apart, they're now communicating. They're being honest with each other. They're now appreciating each other. They're loving each other. And it doesn't take much. And our mind can't even fathom that that's on the other side.
Yeah.
It's impossible. I did not know I was going to end up in the US or even get divorced or having, a third child. I mean, there's so many things that I did not know. But now it's like, oh yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And it
Perfect
just requires that
synchronicities.
synchronicity. Absolutely. Oh, I got so many of those, but those are like, those are, they're some of the most profound that I've had recently. Oh my goodness.
Oh,
And
wow.
it
Well,
got
let's
my
see how much time we got. Well, we're real close to time. Share one
yes,
synchronicity with us before
yes,
we close up. How about that?
sure.
Go ahead.
Oh, for me?
Yeah,
Oh, I
share
gotta,
one.
yeah. I don't think I have one on top of my head. I just know they
Okay.
happen to me often.
Okay.
I can share a the time in. Would
Uh-huh.
that be okay? Do I have a few minutes for
Yeah.
time in? Okay. So we know about timeouts, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we when we do something wrong or bad that we should go in timeout. And as a parent, I learned, okay, well, I need to remove myself as a timeout to regulate and self-soothe myself to be a better parent. It's not always about the children being isolated and rejected. We all have to figure out how to organize our big emotions. So timeouts have such a bad connotation that I started calling it time ins because a
Okay.
time in is a choice to tune into yourself, time in to tune in the moment. How am I feeling? And what do I need? And if we can use that time in, this is really what you're talking about intuition. This is where the synchronicities happen too, because the more we tune in when we are feeling upset, or angry with somebody, or we're thinking about the past, let's take a time in. And it can just be a deep breath, just noticing, observing, and then proceeding in the best interest of ourselves and others. This time in is it's just a big tool that I use for everybody in starting to understanding ourselves more.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we can attend to our own yard and not project ourselves into the other person, we are so much more likely to put our mask on first and then speaking with more honesty and more authenticity and more clarity so other people also know what we really want. And now we're getting a lot more of what we want. So it's just like a quick little thing for your
Yeah.
people listening, that
Yeah.
taking a
Thank you for
time
that.
in to
Yeah.
self-regulate, to just observe what
Mm-hmm.
happens inside of you is just is just so, so, so important. And we
Yeah,
shouldn't be shamed for feeling off or feeling angry. That's not what
right.
it's about. We don't need to go in time out and feeling bad about ourselves. We need to honor and welcome what comes up so
Yeah.
we can heal it and we can move on the best of our abilities.
Yeah. One of my favorite books is Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. And that really speaks to that because when you fight the feeling that you have and you try to squish it down, it's like
Yeah.
you're packing it down and it's
Oh,
going to be there
yes.
for a long time.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's breathing and letting it go. And like I had a client the other day, I'll just share real quick, and he was having some problems with somebody at work and they would just trigger him and he would get angry. And so I told him, I said, well, you can't control that person. All you can do is control you. I said, so next time they trigger you, I said, you don't have to say a word. And I suggest you don't right away. You just take 3 really good deep breaths. They don't even know what you're doing. And then when you've done those deep breaths, then you will have the place where your heart and your brain are talking
Yes.
and then you're not just spilling your guts and saying things hurtful things in response to them. I said,
Yes.
so that gives you that place where your heart and your head, you can control what you say. And I said the experience you're going to have with this person is going to be like night and day different.
Yep.
And if you can do that, then you'll have won that the war of these reactive things.
Yes. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
It's so important. Taking that time into yourself is just so important.
Yeah. And we need to do that all the time, right? Not when
Yes.
somebody triggers us, just for the heck of it, right?
All the time,
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
time. This is where the freedom happens, the magic
That's it.
happens.
Yeah, I love it. This has been such an amazing conversation. I have loved talking to you, and I kind of feel like I want to just stop the recording and then just keep talking. So,
Yes, absolutely. This is Friday night. This is like
that's
the
right.
third
That's
night we're
right.
recording on. So yeah,
It's
this is
party time.
it is party girl time. I love it.
All right. So thank you everyone for being here. And Trina, definitely thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to share with my guest on the podcast. And I love all the things that you were talking about. It's just right up my alley. I love it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave everybody with my favorite quote. And it is the best way to predict the future is create it. So I will see you on the next show. Love you guys.